Coming up on No Pulp, we're talking all things college football. And Ian, I'm not only excited to see toe meet leather in week 1, but for more of Brian Kelly's ridiculous southern accents.
He's from Everett, Massachusetts, not so good. But what about those other massive coaching moves in the South? Mario Cristobal taking over at his alma mater of Miami. Lincoln Riley is now Southern California cool. Dabo Swinney lost both of his coordinators.
Hey, you mentioned Dabo Swinney, Clemson. They're in the top 4 heading into the season. Do they belong there? Do they stay there come season's end?
The top 5 is going to be challenged week 1. Multiple teams facing super stiff competition.
A lot of good teams, a lot of good players. We'll give you guys our Heisman and playoff picks. All of that and much more coming up on No Pulp. Welcome, welcome, and happy football season, everybody. He's Ian Unsworth. I'm John Eads, and we're about to get you all set and ready to go for the 2022 college football season. So buckle up and let's ride. Now, it was a busy offseason, so no worries if you need to catch up on some things. Let's start with the men in the headsets. The coaching carousel spun wild this offseason. A lot of moves being made all over the country. Ian, which new coaching hire do you think will be most successful come season's end?
Lincoln Riley going out to Southern California. That's the way to go. A coach that's developed 3 NFL quarterbacks, 2 Heisman winners. You talk about Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and also Jalen Hurts. He's got another elite QB going with him to SoCal in Caleb Williams, the leader of a great transfer class. The #1 ranked transfer class in the nation with 13 guys, including Jordan Addison from Pitt and Mario Williams on the outside. The corners, Latrell McCutcheon and an incoming recruit, 5-star Damani Jackson. You need athletes on the outside to take on Utah, the best team in the Pac-12 right now, but a high-powered offense with a lot of speed can get them done. That's what Lincoln Riley brings to USC.
When you think Lincoln Riley, you think offense. So I'm going with the defensive guru for my pick, Brent Venables from Oklahoma.
Oh, they got beef with Lincoln Riley.
They do. Those two schools do not mesh well together. Some beef created there. Broyles Award winner back in 2016 was Coach Venables, so he's going to get that defense right. He's going to be great from week 1 from the get-go. If you're worried about the offense, don't be. He's got Matt Levy as his offensive coordinator, comes from Ole Miss, and he just led the Rebels to the most prolific offense in the SEC. He's got Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, who passed for over 7,000 yards at UCF. Love Brent Venables. Love the Sooners.
Only worry about Dylan Gabriel, injury issues. He suffered a big-time knee injury at UCF, which kept him out. Despite all that change, the Sooners are ranked 9th in the AP preseason poll, which came out just over 2 weeks ago. The Big 12 favorites are looking upwards at a very predictable top 3. You got Bama, you got Ohio State, you got Georgia. And the Crimson Tide got 54 first-place votes. Multiply that by 1,733,000. You've got what Nick Saban is making in the next 8 years. John, Bama in first, a mortal lock. But what surprised you about the preseason poll?
There's always that one team that's in the top 10, even the top 5, that just doesn't belong there. And, you look at the preseason rankings come December, you're like, what were they thinking? That team this year is Notre Dame. They're in the top 5.
Always Notre Dame.
They're in the top 5. They don't play anybody till later on in the season. They're not going to be able to get away with that this year. They play Ohio State week 1. We're going to get into that. The reason why I think Notre Dame's overrated, they got new quarterback, Tyler Buchner, new head coach, Marcus Freeman, and they have no skill position talent. And if you kind of wanted to see a sample size of what's to come for the Fighting Irish minus Brian Kelly, just look at the Fiesta Bowl. You caught that game, right?
Yeah,
they're up by a considerable margin heading into halftime. Outscored 30-7 down the way to lose to Oklahoma State. And they made Spencer Sanders look like a Heisman candidate, which we know he's not.
You and me don't miss football games. That's just how we are. So we've watched a bit of Texas A&M, who's ranked 1 spot below Notre Dame at 6. And Texas A&M has a lot of unproven talent. Zach Calzada last year was the quarterback in A&M's big-time win over Alabama. Jimbo Fisher's hanging his cowboy hat on that one, but Jimbo's gone 8-4 3 times over the past 4 seasons, never been to an SEC championship. Calzada's gone off to Auburn. Haynes King, the new quarterback, he's thrown 24 career collegiate passes. They've got a #1 recruiting class, but you need a little sick. Yeah, but you can't win games with freshmen right away. Maybe week 9, week 10, you've got it, but you see Bama in week 6, and that's after a really tough stretch. You've got Miami, Arkansas, you're going to Mississippi State, Bama, and then you got to face the Cock Commander in South Carolina. Tough stretch for A&M, and I think they drop at least 2 of those games.
Yeah, don't sleep on South Carolina. Zach Calzada, by the way, now the 3rd-string quarterback at Auburn. So I don't know what happened with that, but that's a big game I'm looking forward to middle of the season. How about the games we got week 1? Let's start with Ohio State and Notre Dame. First meeting between these 2 teams in the regular season since 1996. The last time they played, Ohio State won by 2 possessions. Do you see it playing out that way here 20 or so more years later.
Absolutely. I don't think Notre Dame can keep up. You're looking at an Ohio State offense that's one of the best in the nation last year and this year. Super prolific. You returned C.J. Stroud, completed 72% of his passes last year. What kind of a number? That's a video game number. 4,500 yards through the air. Travion Henderson burst on the scene as a freshman, over 1,200 yards, and he's going to be a guy you're looking at for a Walter Payton Award this year. And the last man back from that three-headed monster last year at receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigma. My Bolitnikoff winner this year, 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl.
He's a
best route runner in college football. Notre Dame can't keep up with that offense.
No, I don't think anybody this year can keep up with that Notre Dame offense. If you're going to beat Ohio State this year, you got to put up, I'd say, at least 40 points on a pedestrian day with the offense that they have, the playmakers that they have. Notre Dame just doesn't have it. I talked about it before. Brand new quarterback, brand new head coach, no skill position talent. I don't know how they're going to put up 10 points, let alone 40.
And Ohio State has a new defensive coordinator. They're making changes on that end as well. That's where they struggled last season. Our other game of the week involves a coaching change we didn't quite get to earlier. Dan Lanning, who led possibly the best defense ever in college football, took the head job at Oregon after Mario Cristobal left for Miami. And as fate would have it, the Ducks are flying south to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in Week 1. John, who you got?
Got to go Georgia. I'm curious to see how much of a drop-off there might be with this defense with Lanning now at Oregon. But the Ducks will provide a pretty stiff test. I've seen some things on the internet that they have the best offensive and defensive line that Georgia's going to face all season. And this is Oregon in the Pac-12. Not the SEC, which Georgia plays those opponents week after week, right? So I think Oregon will provide a stiff test. Georgia's about a 3-possession favorite right now, and I think the number's going to be right about there when it's all said and done in Athens.
You look at the quarterbacks in this game. You got Bo Nix transfer from Auburn on one side, and Stetson Bennett transfer. Well, no, not even transfer. I did see his haircut.
The Quavis Bennett now.
I don't know what you're going with. Would you see Stetson Bennett with that mustache too of yours?
I think he could rock it.
Stetson Bennett can really rock anything after walking on to Georgia and winning a national championship. Bo Nix, on the other hand, left Auburn because the running game at Auburn's always good. The passing game, never enough to get it done. Bo Nix went elsewhere to try to improve his draft stock. At one point, I said Bo Nix was an NFL quarterback. I'm rolling that tape way back, one of my worst ever. I don't think Bo Nix is good enough to take down Georgia. The defense is still really good.
I think Stetson Bennett could sneak his way into the Heisman conversation. Bo Nix nowhere near there.
Whoa.
Things could get crazy. They get crazy every year. They were crazy last year. This has definitely turned into a quarterback award. Aiden Hutchinson snuck in there, our guy, last season. So I ask you, do you see the Heisman finalist list? Do you see the Heisman race getting crazy again this year? Maybe a defensive player getting back in?
There's a defensive player who's on everybody's watch list this season, and it's Will Anderson, defensive end from Alabama. Some people liked him better than Aiden Hutchinson last year. Everybody thinks he's a lock for number 1 in the draft this year. 57 tackles last season, 17.5 sacks. Those numbers are actually better than our boy Aiden Hutchinson. We stuffed that to the side, but Will Anderson is back for another season, and he's quietly emerged as a leader on the Bama defense, but hands down the best player. I think he's top 3 for the Heisman, but does not win because Bryce Young's back.
Yeah, I mean, they're both on the same team, too, so there's kind of a little bit of give and take there.
You're mixing apples and oranges.
Right. Like, if you get an interception, you're taking Bryce Young off the field, but then you're getting Anderson back on the field. But if any defensive player is going to make it into the Heisman watch, a Heisman finalist, I think it is Will Anderson. I like Bryce Young, but it's tough to win the Heisman back-to-back. The only player that's ever done it, Archie Young, and that was way back, way before you and I were even born.
Young?
Archie Miller, excuse me.
Archie Miller? Reggie Miller, Archie Young. I believe you're talking about Archie Griffin.
He played for Ohio State.
We don't like Ohio State that much. That's okay.
Why, no, I decided to mind. Anyways, I think C.J. Stroud could be a lock for the top 3, maybe the top 2. Led the Ohio State offense to one of the best outputs as a freshman last year. He's going to be a sophomore. He's got Jackson Smith and Jigba back. He talked about it, Travion Henderson. I don't expect any kind of a drop-off from C.J. Stroud this year, so I think he's certainly a guy to keep an eye on. He's going to be a mainstay there all year.
There's no Big Ten defense that can really hang with Ohio State, all things considered.
Unless it's snowing.
Unless it's snowing and guys have the flu. The last non-Power 5 player to win the Heisman, Ty Detmer, who quarterbacked the BYU Cougars to the Holiday Bowl in 1990. So, John, which group of 5 team could maybe sneak into that New Year's Day Bowl conversation, make some noise this year?
Give me the Cougs, but not BYU. Going Houston. Dana Holgerson's Cougars down in Texas. Love what they have. They got Clayton Tune back at quarterback. Had a great season last year. Over 3,300 passing yards, 30 total touchdowns. Who's he throwing it to? Nathaniel Dell. Over 1,300 Tank, great nickname. 1,300 receiving yards, which led the entire American Athletic Conference. And their schedule is pretty favorable. No Cincinnati this year, and their non-conference is road games at Texas Tech and UTSA, both pretty solid teams. But then you bring it back home, and you're taking on Kansas and Rice. Those should be 2 wins. And like I said, pretty easy in-conference schedule. So give me the Cougars maybe to sneak into the college football playoff. We'll get into that later.
You just called UTSA a solid team.
They won their conference last year.
Okay, congratulations. But
Roadrunners.
I'm going with BYU, Ty Detmer's team, 32 years later, because you need to play real ranked teams to make a big-time statement as a non-Power 5 team. Cincinnati did it last year, beating Notre Dame early on and staying in the headlines of the college football world throughout. BYU plays 4 top 25 opponents in their schedule. They've got Baylor and Oregon back-to-back. Arkansas comes to Provo, and they play Notre Dame for their last game of the season. So that is an absolutely fantastic way to get your name heard. And BYU's got a quarterback in Jaron Hall who's got potential to be elite, 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio last year.
It's been there forever, Tim. He knows the playbook like it's Algebra 1. But we finally saw a non-Power 5 team break through, make the playoff last year. Some people think BYU could do that this season. Do you see it getting crazy and playing out like that again this year? Do you see maybe a non-Power 5 team sneaking in?
No, I don't think Desmond Ridder has the magic. Well, he's off in the NFL. I don't think anyone has that magic. I've got a pretty basic college football playoff this season. It starts with Alabama at number 1. They probably won't move from that spot all year. Ohio State stays at number 2, but get this. Ohio State loses to Michigan in the final game of the season. Michigan wins the Big Ten championship. Ohio State stays at 2. Michigan's at 3. Utah's at 4 after sweeping the Pac-12. Utah does not lose a conference game this year.
I like Utah. Really solid under Kyle Whittingham year after year. They come to play. They hit 10 wins like it's nobody's business. I'm with you with Alabama, and I'm with you with Michigan and Ohio State, but not necessarily in that order. I think Michigan beats Ohio State, wins the Big Ten, secures that number 2 seed. Ohio State hangs around. They secure the 4. Who do I have at 3? NC State, the Wolfpack coming out of the ACC, running the table, going 13-0 on their way to the college football playoff.
We're a little shaky about Clemson, but the talent there is so good. And you have to get better if you're G.J. Uiagalelei. The Clemson offense is going to start to function, and the talent at Clemson and the talent at NC State
All right, talent's a good word. My word, though, is continuity. NC State brings back pretty much its entire coaching staff, pretty much all of its players on both sides of the football. I don't know. I like them to run the table.
All right. So what's your national championship game looking like?
Well, you and I are probably going similar ways with this. I've got Alabama and Michigan in the final game. I think the Wolverines finally pole vault into that national championship game after losing to Georgia last year. And I've got Bama ending that run right there.
I've got Alabama and Ohio State. Michigan's great. I don't think Michigan can beat Ohio State twice. Bama's my national champion because last year, the Crimson Tide would have won if not for injuries to Jamison Williams and Josh Mechie, 2 receivers that went down in the SEC championship game and national championship game. Bryce Young had nobody to throw to at the end. That doesn't happen this year. Nick Saban gets another ring.
They still almost won, too, but it would be so cool to see Michigan and Ohio State play 2 different times in the matter of a couple of weeks.
It's never happened before.
So we'll see if that happens, but we're going to have to wait till the end of the season. That's all the time we have for now. For Ian Unsworth, I'm John Eads. You can catch full episodes of No Pulp at Citrus TV on YouTube. We will catch you guys next week.